welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books right here in the live studios in Hythe, Kent, southeast England, just near the English Channel. We call it the Haven. We have Shyam Kishore here visiting from London. He's going to help us out when Abhaya Das Brahmachari takes a little trip to Serbia and back, so we have more time together. Okay. We hope you're all safe, well, happy in all respects. And just to add to a little of that happiness, we're going to read the Brhad Bhagavatamrta tonight. Before we do, we're going to read the Srimad Bhagavata Mahima Stotram, written by Srila Sanatana Goswami, the author of Brhad Bhagavatamrta. He's glorifying the Srimad Bhagavatam in 5 verses. Most beautiful glorification of the Bhagavatam I've ever heard. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja, Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidwandoditaditya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshakshadayate, Sarvada Sarvasevyaya, Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin, Madguro Man Mahadana, Mannisdadaga Madbhagya, Mad Anandanamostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy. I bow down to you. Asadu saduta dayin, atini chuchata kara, hanamuncha gadachin mam, premna rit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, we're coming to the end of the 7th chapter and to the end of the first part of Brhad Bhagavatamrta. Krishna has had one of the most ecstatic conversations I've ever heard with his wives after coming back from Nava Vrindavan and going into this kind of ecstasy in separation from the Brajavasis, and explaining to them after coming back to his palace why he married them, which was because he was too much attached to the gopis and they reminded him of them. And then he explained to Narada Muni why he shouldn't feel bad, that Krishna felt blessed because he was able to experience all these things. So now Shri Parikshit is going to speak, just as Narada is in ecstasy from having heard from Sri Krishna. We're beginning with text 132, chapter 7, part 1. Sri Parikshit said, the sage, that's Narada Muni, the sage began singing Krishna's glories, playing on his veena and shouting Jai, Jai. He praised Lord Krishna, the giver of benedictions, with songs filled with names arising from his pastimes in Braja. So Krishna had told Narada to take any benediction he wants. He's so happy with him. Even though Narada was the one that started this whole, emotional thing that happened. Commentary. Narada wanted to ask for a few choice and rarely obtainable benedictions. So he first sang for Krishna's pleasure, so that Krishna would be inclined to grant Narada's desires. Most pleasing to Krishna was Narada's ecstatic recitation of names Krishna had acquired in Braja, like Gokula Mahotsava, Yashodanandana, Nandakumar, Gopa Gopi Jana Priya. There's a nice one. Gopi Gopi Jana Priya. Gopi Gana Manohara, and Purna Mochana. Text 133 and 134. From Dashashwamedha Tirtha in Prayag to Dwarka, Narada had wandered, and he had spoken with devotees, the Brahmana at Prayag and all the others, who by the Lord's divine grace had each achieved perfection. Feeling great pleasure, Narada, the king of sages, now wanted to hear of this perfection directly from Lord Krishna's own mouth. Dear Mother, Lord Krishna is the all-attractive lion among generous benefactors. Now, therefore, Narada begged from him the first blessing he wished to receive. Commentary. Narada already knew about Krishna's mercy, but he wanted to hear Krishna describe it in his own words. Pure Vaishnavas never lose interest in hearing such topics. Narada had spoken with many devotees, beginning with the Brahmana, leader of the devotees in Prayag, and ending with Uddhava in Dwarka. And from each he had heard the same story, that someone else, not the devotee speaking, was favored by Krishna. For a reader with no taste for Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, this simple repetitious plot might be boring. Vaishnavas, however, are perpetually fascinated by the endless varieties of Krishna's reciprocations with his devotees. Narada was particularly curious about how the devotees he had met, even though they varied greatly in material status, had perfected their life in all respects. All of them, from the Prayag Brahmana to the southern king, up to Indra, Brahma, Shiva, and Prahlad, Hanuman, and Uddhava, had achieved remarkable success in performing religious duties, in acquiring exalted means for enjoyment, in disentangling themselves from illusion, and in perfecting the transcendental art of serving the Supreme Person. All of them had achieved their manifold success by only one cause, Krishna's grace. Narada had long been curious to better understand how Krishna distributes his mercy. And now he was eager to inquire from Krishna directly. That would be nice. Huh? 137 and 138. O sage, each of the devotees you saw and heard about. Did I skip one? No. No, yes I did. What verse are we on? I think I skipped down too many.
135.
135, yeah. Now we're in 136. Huh?
So reading 135.
Reading 135. Yes. Text 135. Narada said, Sri Krishna Chandra, please grant that no one will ever feel he has enough of your mercy, your devotional service, or pure love for you, the reservoir of ecstasy. Commentary. Narada wants to be assured by Krishna that no matter how much of Krishna's favor a devotee may receive, the devotee will never become self-satisfied or complacent. Rather, he will always think himself unworthy of the mercy and in need of more and more. Narada mentions Krishna's mercy, bhakti yoga, and prema, all three together. Krishna's mercy, bhakti yoga, and prema. Even though they become manifest in a causal sequence, not all at once. Krishna's mercy leads to bhakti, which develops into prema. What Narada implies is that Vaishnavas on various levels of devotional progress have different needs. A neophyte needs special mercy from Krishna and his devotees to begin the process of bhakti yoga. An intermediate sadhaka needs ample opportunities for practicing his personal bhajan. And a mature devotee, driven by his strong urge, needs to taste Krishna prema. Let the impersonalists be satisfied with their theoretical self-realization. Narada and his followers never have enough of the ever-increasing ecstasy of discovering their relationships with Krishna. Text 36. The Supreme Lord said, O preceptor of all clever scholars, what kind of benediction is this? My mercy, my devotional service, and ecstatic love for me, all have this nature. That should be simply obvious. Commentary. To Krishna, it sounded ironic that Narada was asking for something that is already an established fact. Since Narada knows everything, he must have had some hidden motive. And indeed, this was so. He wanted to hear Krishna himself extol the glories of Prema Bhakti. Text 137 and 138. O sage, each of the devotees you saw and heard about in your wanderings here and there, from Prayag Tirtha to Dwarka, is perfect in all respects. Each of them can deliver the entire world, and each has truly received my mercy. There existed between them only degrees of perfection. Commentary. In each of the places Narada had visited, from Prayag to Dwarka, he had met with pure devotees who personified the transcendental virtues of bhakti, and he had heard about others, like the residents of Sri Vaikuntha and Sri Nanda Braj. By the strength of Krishna's mercy, each of these devotees was situated in perfection, and able to elevate others to perfection. This does not mean, however, that their love for Krishna lacked individual distinctions. Pure devotional service is by nature full of variety. So no two devotees are exactly alike. A formal ranking among Krishna's devotees does not exist. But still, they show some differences in excellence. Ultimately, Srimati Radharani and her companion gopis are the most excellent devotees. The other pure Vaishnavas acknowledge the supremacy of Srimati Radharani without envy, being satisfied with the unlimited happiness of serving Krishna in their own individual ways. The second part of Brhad Bhagavatamrta, the glories of Goloka, will conclusively demonstrate that every pure devotee of Krishna enjoys full satisfaction in his own loving exchanges with Krishna. Text 139. Maybe it's become over here. Yet none of these devotees is ever satiated. Please therefore ask me from me some other more satisfying benedictions. Commentary. Other than the Vrajvasis, no one is closer to Krishna than the Pandavas and Yadus. They are so fortunate that Krishna lives with them in close intimacy, and they are able to share this fortune with their entire families. Nonetheless, they are also dissatisfied, thinking themselves unworthy, lacking in pure devotion and surrender. As Krishna here indicates, this is simply the peculiar nature of prema bhakti. Text 140. Shri Parikshit said, Narada danced in sheer joy, and like a mendicant asking alms, he begged from Krishna two excellent boons. Speaking to the Lord, the crest jewel of charitable persons, this is what Narada said. Commentary. Narada was delighted to hear Krishna confirm that all the Vaishnavas he had visited had fully received Krishna's mercy, and that despite such good fortune, these humble devotees were never satisfied with themselves. He danced for a short time and then approached Krishna for two specific blessings. Like a beggar folding his hands in supplication and holding out his cloth to ask charity for a rich man, from a rich man. Narada praised Krishna so that Krishna would be inclined to grant his request. Text 141. Sri Narada said, O Lord, never satisfied with your own charity, I have now achieved my goal. My labors have borne fruit, for now I understand in a practical way who the objects of your greatest mercy are. Commentary. Narada had taken the trouble to journey from the earth to Brahmaloka and back, and earlier in his life he had exerted himself in spiritual studies and austere meditation. Now he feels assured that all these efforts were worthwhile, for with his own eyes he has seen the truth of what is told in the Vedic scriptures. Most valuably, he has heard from Krishna and his devotees in Dwarka about the super excellence of the Braja Gopis. Text 142. This is the only benediction I need obtain, and for me it is the greatest mercy. But still, O King, among those who give charity, I have one long cherished desire. Commentary. Since Krishna insists on being generous, Narada wants to request a few wonderful benedictions. Although the desire Narada is about to express has been sitting in his heart for some time, Krishna should not worry that it might be impossible to fulfill. Narada reminds Krishna that Krishna is, after all, the most competent of all who give charity, and therefore no benediction is beyond his ability to grant. Text 143. O swan, gliding in the lakes of the Brajavasis' love, I wish that I may wander everywhere, always chanting, drinking the nectar of your names. Those most sweet names arise from the ocean of Gokula and spread the glories of your infinitely varied dress and ways of acting. As I wander, behaving like a madman, may I distribute joy to everyone in all the worlds. Commentary. An emperor swan likes to visit various lakes where he swims about and enjoys at liberty, unimpeded by lesser birds. And Krishna finds his delight in the hearts of his surrendered devotees. Each heart a unique treasure house of manifold ecstasies and loving dedication. Narada wants to serve Krishna as an exemplary Parivarjakacharya, preaching the glories of Harinamamrita throughout the universe. By chanting Krishna's names, Narada will enjoy the highest pleasure and also share that pleasure with everyone else. The bliss of Harinama will inspire such joy in Narada and his followers in disciplic succession that they will become like intoxicated madmen, laughing, crying, dancing, singing, and sometimes showing all ecstatic symptoms at once. Thus these devotees will forget their bodily needs and worldly duties. The names Krishna acquires in Gokula are sweeter than the names he acquires anywhere else, including even such names as Vishnu, Narayana, Narasingha, Ramachandra, Mathuranath, and Yadavendra. The names of Krishna in Gokula Vrindavan describe qualities of his that cannot be found in any other abode. Only in Brajabhumi does Krishna place a peacock feather in his hair, Gunjamala, Gunja ornaments on his ears, and garlands of kadamba flowers around his neck. Only in Braja does he perform such pastimes as drinking the life air of Putana and breaking the cart in which the demon Shakata was hiding. Only there is he called by such sweet names as Nandanandana, Yashoda Vatsala, Gopika Manohara, and Vraja Janananda. Vraja Janananda. Now there's a nice name. Text 144. Whether by speaking, thinking, hearing, or physical contact, if any person in this world comes in touch even once with these pastimes of yours and is convinced of their importance, May he be endowed eternally with the power to worship your feet in pure love. Feet resplendent with the saffron dust from the pitcher-like breasts of the blessed gopis. Commentary. Narada now submits his second request. He wants to be assured by the Lord's personal promise that anyone in the future who directly or indirectly experiences the transcendental nectar of Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes will be blessed to relish the taste of pure love of God. When he says kachchidapi, anyone at all, Narada means that prerequisites as to caste or any other qualifications, material or spiritual, would be put aside. Because Krishna's glories and Krishna's devotees are all merciful, simply coming in contact with them should automatically make even the most uncivilized, wretched person pious and fortunate. Remembrance of Krishna naturally arises in the heart of one who meets a pure devotee of Krishna and hears from him about Krishna's pastimes. The only qualification the hearer of Krishna Katha needs is that he be kritadi, eager to hear, and ready to trust the authority of Krishna's representatives who speak his message. Equipped with this one quality of confident determination to hear with faith, a Vaishnava can remember Krishna vividly by listening to the accounts of his pastimes and visiting the places where he performed them. As mentioned earlier, the gopis told Uddhava when they met him in Vrindavan, "Dear Uddhava Prabhu, when Krishna was here in the company of Sankarshan, he enjoyed all these rivers, hills, forests, cows, and flute sounds. All these remind us constantly of Nanda's son. Indeed, because we see Krishna's footprints, which are marked with divine symbols, we can never forget him." Bhagavatam 10, 47, 49, and 50. Remembrance of Krishna is awakened not only by hearing his glories and the glories of his land, Vrindavan, but also by direct physical contact. Vaishnavas can physically touch Krishna's glories in the form of the book, Srimad Bhagavatam. They can hear about Sri Vrindavan Dham from the Bhagavatam, and then, if fortunate enough, they can come to Vrindavan to bathe in the dust on which Krishna and his dearmost devotees have walked. Text 145. Sri Parikshit said, Lord Gopinath then extended his divine lotus hand and with great respect for Narada blissfully said, "So be it." That's why we're here, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we're here, and only for this reason. The mercy of Narada and all those who came after him. Srila Prabhupada. Commentary. Krishna extended his right hand, the hand normally used to offer benedictions. Narada wanted explicit verification from Krishna. Therefore, Krishna showed his consent in such a way that no one could fail to understand. When Krishna enjoys his pastimes as Gopinath, the lover of the gopis, he reveals the most confidential desires of his heart. And in this same mood as Gopinath, he happily accepted Narada's two requests. 146. The sage was suddenly plunged into a vast ocean of supreme bliss. He sang and danced in various ways, thus delighting Lord Krishna. Commentary. Only an ecstatic devotee, by the unique power of prema bhakti, can give pleasure to Lord Krishna. Krishna is full in his own ecstasy, so an ordinary person, anxious and miserable as he is, can never presume to do anything that can please the Lord. 147. Narada then partook of excellent food and drink with the two lords, taking prasadam with Krishna. Imagine. As Devaki and Rohini supervised and Rukmini served. Commentary. Invited by Balaram and Krishna to take lunch with them, Narada was served excellent sweet rice and other delicious dishes and various refreshing drinks. Since Rukmini was the first of Krishna's queens, she claimed the right to serve the meal. She went around to each of the three people eating and repeatedly offered a small portion of whatever they wanted. Uddhava suggested to Narada what was best to eat. Satyabhama fanned him, and the other queens pleased him with various kinds of service. Commentary. Uddhava went around commenting, "You haven't tried this. This other preparation is your favorite. Take some of this and some of that." Since the weather was quite hot, Krishna's beloved Satyabhama personally fanned the two lords and the exalted sage. The other queens, headed by Jambavati, busied themselves doing everything they could to make a meal a pleasure. They poured cool water from brimming pitchers, eloquently praised the food, fanned the bodies of Krishna, Balaram, and Narada from all sides, and kept the room fragrant by burning aguru and other incense. Fragrant oils? Text 149. After the sage finished eating and washed his mouth, Lord Krishna worshipped him, anointing him with fragrant oils and adorning him with flower garlands and varied ornaments. Narada then took leave of Madhava, Lord Krishna, and went to Prayag, thinking, "Let me bestow perfection on the sages who have waited so long for me to return." Commentary. Krishna is called Madhava because he is the moon that arose from the ocean of the dynasty of King Madhu. Madhava is also the name of the deity of Krishna at Dashashwamedha Ghat, where Narada had seen the sages worshipping the Lord and bathing daily in the confluence of the Yamuna, Ganga, and Saraswati during the month of Magh. Narada wanted to return to Prayag to share his realizations with those sages who, by taking shelter of Dashashwamedha Ghat, had obtained the shelter of Krishna. Thus Narada started on his journey to Prayag, intoxicated with eagerness for pure devotion. Wherever he passed, he vibrated his veena and blissfully sang the glories of Krishna Bhakti he had seen with his own eyes. 152. When the sages at Prayag heard the whole wonderful account from the mouth of Narada, they once and for all gave up all interest in everything other than Krishna's service, for they were able to grasp the essence of what is of value. Commentary. Whatever traces of attachment to material work and knowledge still lingered in the hearts of the sages were at once cleansed away when they heard Narada's account of his travels. They were wise devotees, able to recognize the essential truth in what Narada told them. 153. Entering a mood of great and single-minded humility, they began worshipping the lotus feet of Sriman Madan Gopal according to Narada's instructions. Commentary. It is an axiomatic principle of devotional science that until one rejects everything insubstantial, one cannot grasp the essence of reality. The sages at Prayag, graced by Narada with ultimate enlightenment, now obtain the total humility, danya, required for entrance into the mysteries of prema bhakti. By honestly thinking themselves unworthy of worshipping the personality of Godhead's lotus feet, they earned the priceless treasure of his favor. Dear Mother, you as well should always worship this young cowherd boy. He is the ocean that yields the nectar of the rasa dance, in which divine gopis fully surround him, entranced by pure love. You should cherish the desire to be a servant of these gopis. You should constantly worship him in pure love as they did, and you should dedicate yourself to the Sankirtan of his names. Commentary. Having finished his story, Parikshit Maharaj is summing up the lesson his mother should learn from it. She ought to absorb herself fully in Krishna consciousness, which in all of its countless varieties derives from and reflects the most perfect love of the gopis, who join Krishna in his rasa dance. God, in his original form, is a young, playful cowherd, and in this form he enjoys the original pleasure. When the Supreme Lord appears in any other form, that appearance is secondary, manifested to satisfy particular devotees. After hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from Shukadev Goswami, Parikshit understood this transcendental fact, and to make his mother also understand it, he has recounted this first part of Sri Brhad Bhagavatamrta. Perhaps Mother Uttara, the widow of Krishna's nephew, might feel uncomfortable assuming the mood of the gopis, at least in public. Therefore, Parikshit advises her more aptly to strive to become a servant of the gopis. As Parikshit here points out, the principal method of becoming a servant of the gopis of Vrindavan is Krishna Nam Sankirtan. Immersing oneself in hearing and chanting the names of the divine cowherd boy of Braja, especially the name of Krishna. This is the best means to practice worshipping him in pure love. And this is the symptom of one who has achieved the treasure of prema. 156. I cannot describe with my own words even one of the glories of the gopis, any more than a mosquito can swallow Mount Meru. Oh, but my spiritual master is fully absorbed in the loving moods of serving Krishna. He can constantly glorify Krishna's names and those of Rukmini and Krishna's other beloved devotees. The gopis were consumed by the expansive flames of the wondrous blazing fire of love for Krishna. If my Guru chants the names of these gopis and recalls a gopi's distinguishing qualities, he too is touched by sparks shooting forth from the flames of this intense fire, and he at once becomes greatly agitated. Therefore, he has to avoid pronouncing the gopis' names. Commentary. The gopis' love for Krishna is unique. It reaches the ultimate extremes of ecstatic intensity, and so it can be compared to a blazing fire. Everything the gopis experience in their lives shines with the light of their Krishna prema. And the flame-like ecstasies from their prema burns their hearts as flames burn a person who comes too close. Shukadeva Goswami is intimately attuned to the mood of the gopis, and therefore he is vulnerable to the danger of becoming too ecstatic. In the helpless state of viraha bhav, he might sometimes become incoherent in chanting the glories of the Lord, the devotional practice that is his own specialty and the only support of his vital force. If Shukadeva utters any of the gopis' names, his heart is at once filled with remembrance of the gopis, and the scorching flames of viraha bhava make him unable to concentrate on his service. Therefore, while reciting Srimad Bhagavatam to Maharaj Parikshit, he avoided mentioning the gopis by name. Many times in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, Shukadeva speaks of the activities and ecstasies, but not the names of individual gopis. Some of the gopis were milking cows when they heard Krishna's flute. They stopped milking and went off to meet him. Some left milk curdling on the stove, and others left cakes burning in the oven. Bhagavatam 10:29-5. One gopi imitated Purna, while another acted like infant Krishna and pretended to suck her breast. Another gopi, crying in imitation of their infant Krishna, kicked the gopi who was taking the role of the cart demon, Shakatasura. Bhagavatam 10:30-15. The gopis began following Krishna's path, as shown by his many footprints. But when they saw that these prints were thoroughly intermixed with those of his dearmost consort, they became perturbed and spoke. Bhagavatam 10:30-26. As the gopis wandered about, their minds completely bewildered, they pointed out various signs of Krishna's pastimes. The particular gopi whom Krishna had led into a secluded forest, when he had abandoned all the other young girls, began to think herself the best of women. My beloved has rejected all the other gopis, she thought, even though they are driven by Cupid himself. Krishna has chosen to reciprocate with me alone. Bhagavatam 10:30-35-36. As the two lovers passed through one part of Vrindavan forest, the special gopi began feeling proud of herself. She told Lord Keshava, "I cannot walk any further. Please carry me wherever you want to go." Thus addressed, Lord Krishna replied, "Just climb on my shoulder." But as soon as he said this, he disappeared. His beloved consort then at once felt great remorse. Bhagavatam 10:33-7-38. One gopi joyfully took Krishna's hand between her folded palms, and another placed his arm, anointed with sandalwood paste, on her shoulder. 10:32-4. One gopi, joining Lord Mukunda in his singing, sang pure melodious songs that rose harmoniously above his. Krishna was pleased and showed great appreciation for her performance, saying, "Excellent, excellent." Then another gopi repeated the same melody, but in a special metrical pattern, and Krishna praised her also. 10:33:9. Some gopis felt so pained at heart that their faces turned pale from their heavy breathing. Others were so anguished that their dresses, bracelets, and braids became loose. 10:39:14. One of the gopis, while meditating on her previous association with Krishna, saw a honeybee before her and imagined that it was a messenger sent by her beloved. Thus she spoke to the bee. 10:47:11. Someone might conjecture that reverential respect for the gopis was Shukadev's reason for not speaking their names. But Parikshit here denies this by specifying that Shukadev was Krishna Rasavishta, always intoxicated by the spontaneous bliss of Krishna consciousness. It was not out of shyness that Shukadev was reluctant to mention the gopis by name. It was out of fear of losing control of himself. 159. If you follow my advice, and with pure love take shelter of the gopis and their master, Lord Sri Krishna, then, O Mother, I promise that by Krishna's mercy, you will be able to understand something of the gopis' greatness. Commentary. Without first scientifically understanding the special qualities of the gopis that distinguish them from everyone else, one cannot develop the true desire to become a servant of the gopis, nor beyond that can one realize the supreme truth of their ecstatic worship of Krishna. With this idea in mind, Parikshit offers this promise to his mother. In what he had spoken, he could not have explained to her everything about the gopis' glories, nor could he have been expected to understand completely what he had told her. To gradually realize the deep subject matter, she would have to follow the standard process of devotional meditation. First, she would have to begin practicing worship of Krishna while following the footsteps of the gopis, as her son had outlined in his narration. By this practice, she would acquire some partial understanding. That understanding would help her worship become mature, which in turn would allow her to know the transcendental reality in more detail, so that finally she would achieve the perfection of prema bhajan. In this way, by worshipping the Supreme Lord, one comes to know the greatness of the gopis, and by knowing the greatness of the gopis, one advances in worship of the Lord. This Shastra, Brhad Bhagavatamrta, declares throughout that pure devotional service to Krishna can be realized only by one who has specific knowledge of both the personality of Godhead and the process of bhakti. Nonetheless, when one has learned the glories of the gopis, the greatest of all the Lord's devotees, one will automatically understand the Lord and his devotional service without any other effort. Text 160. With the help of this excellent narration about the Supreme Lord, which shows who has received the essence of the Lord's mercy, one can understand him for certain. Anyone who for any reason takes shelter with faith of this narration will quickly attain love for Lord Sri Krishna. Commentary. To Parikshit's promise, Srila Sanatana Goswami now adds his own. By taking shelter of the Supreme Lord's devotees, one can understand their special glories, which further leads one to enter particular methods of devotional worship, and finally attain pure love for the Lord. This sequence of perfection is wonderful enough in itself, but even more wonderful is that one can achieve the same perfection simply by hearing this Brhad Bhagavatamrta with faith. The purpose of this book is to make one know how Sri Krishna Chandra, the original personality of Godhead, acts as the unlimited source of super excellent compassion. Sincere readers will quickly rise to the goal of Krishna Prema, especially when they conscientiously follow the authorized principles of sadhana bhakti. Thus ends the 7th chapter of part 1 of Srila Sanatana Goswami's Brhad Bhagavatamrta, entitled Purna, the complete perfection. Thus ends part 1. Jai Shri Krishna Prema Bhakti, Gopi Bhav ki Jai, Shri Krishna ki Jai, Narada Muni, the transcendental spaceman ki Jai, Uddhava ki Jai, Baladev ki Jai, Rukmini ki Jai, Rohini ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Well, it was a eventful evening. We finished part 1 of the Brhad Bhagavatamrta. A little late, but it was worth it. It was worth it. All right, all of you out there in cyberspace, if you're still conscious after hearing that, perhaps you can muster up some words to reflect upon.
There's one question by Krishna Premabhati Devidasi.
Okay, Krishna Premabhati.
Parikshit Maharaj kindly instructed his mother Uttara in the principle of chanting the names of Krishna to attain service to the gopis of Raj. Question mark.
Yes, but more specifically, it was to develop the desire to become the servant of the servant of the servant of the gopis. And in our particular situation, this means to become the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because in the Kali Yuga, this was not in the Kali Yuga. In the Kali Yuga, we're being given the opportunity to hear this book simply by the grace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's servants of his servants of his servants of his servants. So the farther away you get from Krishna to become the servant of the servant of the servant, and of Lord Chaitanya to become the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, then you will get everything without effort, effortlessly. That's the message of this book. Hare Krishna. And you know what the best thing to do to get that? Is to give Krishna consciousness to others. No matter who you are, no matter where you are, whatever your situation is, just try to give Krishna consciousness to others. In the form of Prabhupada's books, in the form of the holy name, in the form of Krishna Prasadam. You noticed how the queens of Krishna were so attentively serving Narada and Krishna, Balaram, their meal. This is how you get Krishna Prema. Or you give Krishna to others. And Krishna says in the Gita himself, no one is more pleasing to him than that person who tries sincerely to give Krishna to others. And this storehouse of love that opened at the end of this book, it will come pouring out from within our hearts by the pleasure that Krishna feels. Hare Krishna.
There's no. Oh, there's just one. Yeah, okay. That's from Anadi Keshor. Anadi Keshor Das. That's from Anadi Keshor Das. Thank you, Maharaj. We are recommended to meditate on how we can do our service in a way which is most pleasing to Krishna. How can we do this while simultaneously understanding that we might be, and Sanatan Goswami puts it in text 146, anxious and miserable, and can never presume to do anything that can please the Lord?
Yes, this is the mystic power of devotional service. That the more expert you become, the less expert you feel. That is the essence of devotional service. And therefore, when that humility becomes so deep that it qualifies you for Krishna Prema, then it becomes the same as Krishna Prema. We will learn about this in the next part of Brhad Bhagavatamrta, even in a more detailed and wonderful way.
There's no other questions, just comments. That's from Krishna Premavati Devidasi. So wonderful to hear how everyone involved in having Narada Muni lunching with Krishna and Balaram, and Lord Krishna honoring Narada.
Yes.
And also, Sukadev Goswami avoided naming any gopi by name in Srimad Bhagavatam because he would not have been able to speak, becoming immersed in Vipral and Bhav, remembering them by name.
Yes. Because he had a particular mission. You know, he had to deliver the Bhagavatam for the whole world. It was the most important service that's ever been done practically, to give everyone in the world the Bhagavatam.
Rachi Manjari. Haribo, wonderful. Congratulations, everyone, for hearing this nectar. Jai Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much for delivering this treasure to the world.
She gets a little carried away, Rati. Haribo, thank you, Rati.
From Krishna Premavati Devidasi. Two specific blessings Narada asked: to wander everywhere immersed in Vraj Krishna and spreading his glories, Parivrajacharya, to benefit everyone, assurance that anyone in the future who relishes Krishna's pastimes attain pure love of Godhead.
Well, no, more specifically, will never think that they have enough. They will become never satiated.
Mm-hmm.
They will always think that they need more and more. transcendental greed. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I look forward to tomorrow even more, so that we can start the famous second part of the Brhad Bhagavatamrta. The first part established who is the highest devotee, and they all are, but particularly the most intimate is Radharani and the gopis. And in the second part, we will find out what is the highest place where that is going on. Shri Brhad Bhagavatamrta ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night, same time, same place, same topic. The creme de la creme. De la creme de la creme de la creme. De la creme 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 de la creme. And it goes out. We don't have a big enough room to write it. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow. Hari Bol.